There's a moment, just before you react, a split second when someone disrespects you, questions you, insults you, or tries to provoke you in front of others. Your heart rate rises, your chest tightens, your thoughts sharpen into weapons. And your ego whispers one command: say something, defend yourself, show them who you are. In that exact moment, most people lose, because the moment you react, you surrender control. Not control of the situation, not control of the outcome. You surrender the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, control of yourself. And once someone can control your emotions, they no longer need to control anything else. Think about your own life. The colleague who makes a sarcastic comment about your work in a meeting, the friend who spreads a quiet rumor behind your back, the stranger online who throws an insult designed to provoke you. None of them are just expressing themselves. They are testing something. They are testing you. They are asking one silent question: how easily can you be controlled? Because if they can trigger your anger, they can predict your behavior. If they can predict your behavior, they can influence your decisions. And if they can influence your decisions, they hold power over you. But there is another type of person in this world, rare, uncomfortable, hard to read, the one who doesn't react, the one who doesn't explain, the one who doesn't engage. The one who simply watches. Calm. Still. Unmoved. And in that silence, something strange begins to happen. The person who tried to provoke them becomes restless. They speak more. They push harder. They reveal more than they planned. Because silence is not empty. Silence is pressure. Silence is psychological weight. Silence forces the other person to sit alone with their own behavior, their own words, their own intentions. And most people cannot tolerate that discomfort. So they expose themselves. This is not weakness. This is not avoidance. This is control. Centuries ago, the political thinker Niccolò Machiavelli observed something most people still don't understand. Power does not belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the one who can remain composed while everyone else loses control. Real power is quiet. It doesn't rush to defend itself. It doesn't explain itself to be accepted. It doesn't fight for attention. It observes. It waits. And when it finally acts, it acts with precision. In this documentary, you are going to learn 7 psychological strategies built on that silent philosophy. 7 ways to protect your emotional control, remove yourself from manipulation, shape how others perceive you, and quietly become the most powerful presence in any room. But before we go deeper, you need to face one uncomfortable truth. Most people don't lose power because someone takes it from them. They lose it because they give it away every time they react without thinking, every time they explain themselves to people who don't respect them, every time they argue with someone who is not even worth their attention. They hand over control, and the people who understand this don't need to fight you. They don't need to dominate you. They simply provoke you and let you defeat yourself. So the real question is not, who has power over me? The real question is, how easy am I to provoke? Because the answer to that question determines everything: your respect, your influence, your reputation, your future. And from this moment forward, every reaction you give becomes a decision. Every silence you hold becomes a strategy. Every moment of control becomes a form of power. And once you see that asterisk, there is a hidden rule governing every human interaction. It is never spoken. It is rarely understood, but it decides who holds power and who gives it away. The person who controls their emotions controls the situation, not through force, not through volume, but through stability. Emotions are predictable. Anger pushes you to speak. Fear pushes you to retreat. Pride pushes you to defend. Insecurity pushes you to explain. And when your emotional reactions are predictable, you become easy to manipulate. All someone has to do is find your trigger. Maybe it's disrespect. Maybe it's criticism. Maybe it's being ignored. Maybe it's being challenged in front of others. Once they identify it, they don't need authority over you. They only need access to your emotions. Because the moment you react impulsively, something shifts. You are no longer choosing your behavior. You are responding to theirs. And that shift is subtle, but powerful. Now they are setting the tone. They are directing the rhythm. They are deciding what version of you appears. This is how control works in modern life. Not through dominance, through provocation. Think about arguments you've witnessed. One person raises their voice. The other reacts emotionally. Soon both are trapped in a cycle of escalation. Neither is thinking clearly. Neither is observing. Both are reacting, and in reaction, power disappears. But then there's the rare individual who refuses to play, the one who remains calm when insulted, the one who listens without interruption, the one whose expression barely changes. At first, this seems passive, but look closer. That person is not suppressing emotion, they are mastering it. They understand something most people don't. When you react emotionally, you reveal information. You reveal what hurts you. You reveal what threatens you. You reveal what controls you. And once that information is visible, it can be used against you. Emotional control is not about being cold. It is about being aware. Aware of your triggers. Aware of manipulation attempts. Aware of how easily tension can be engineered. When you pause instead of reacting, something powerful happens. You create uncertainty. The person trying to provoke you doesn't get the reaction they expected. They hesitate. They question themselves. They speak more than they intended. Because silence disrupts momentum, and disruption shifts control. Back to you. Over time, people begin to sense it. They notice that you cannot be pulled into chaos. They realize their emotional tactics don't work on you. And slowly, the testing stops. Respect grows in the space where reaction used to live, because emotional control feels intimidating. Not aggressive, not loud, but unshakable. And in a world where most people are driven by impulse, the one who remains steady becomes rare. The one who remains steady becomes influential. The one who remains steady becomes powerful. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: if they can move your emotions, they can move your decisions. But if you control your emotions, no one moves you. And when no one can move you without your permission, you become the one who decides how the game is played. There is a quiet instinct that feels honest, reasonable, even polite. When someone questions you, you explain. When someone misunderstands you, you clarify. When someone criticizes you, you defend. It feels like maturity, but in the psychology of power, it often signals the opposite. Because every unnecessary explanation sends a hidden message. I need you to agree with me. And the moment you need agreement, you give away authority. Watch how people behave when they feel unsure of themselves. They talk more. They justify their choices. They repeat their reasons in different ways. They search for approval in a listener's face. They are not just explaining. They are negotiating their worth. Now observe someone who is certain. They speak once. They state their position, and then they stop. No rush to defend. No urgency to be understood. No emotional need to convince. Because certainty does not chase validation. Certainty stands still. When you over-explain, you invite others into your internal world. You give them your reasoning, your motives, your doubts, and once people can examine your reasoning, they feel entitled to challenge it. They pick it apart. They question your choices. They look for inconsistencies, not because they are stronger than you, but because you open the door. Silence, on the other hand, keeps that door closed. It creates distance. And distance creates authority. Throughout history, powerful individuals have understood this instinctively. They do not answer every accusation. They do not correct every rumor. They do not clarify every misunderstanding. Because they understand a simple psychological truth: not everyone deserves access to your explanation. When you explain yourself to everyone, you lower your position to the level of every opinion. But when you choose silence, you elevate your position above unnecessary judgment. Something interesting happens in that silence. People begin to feel it themselves. They interpret your actions. They create their own meanings. They project confidence onto you, or fear onto themselves, and most of the time, what they imagine is stronger than anything you could have explained. This is the paradox of power. The less you explain, the more people assume you know what you're doing. The less you defend, the more people assume you have nothing to defend. The less you react, the more people assume you are above the situation. Of course, this does not mean you never communicate. Clear communication is necessary in leadership, responsibility, and trust. But there is a difference between clarifying with purpose and explaining out of insecurity. One is intentional, the other is emotional. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself one simple question: am I sharing this to create clarity, or am I trying to be accepted? If it is clarity, speak once, calmly, directly. If it is acceptance, say less. Because your value does not increase the more you justify it. In fact, the opposite is true. When you stop explaining your every move, You stop inviting unnecessary judgment. When you stop defending your identity, you start strengthening it. And when people realize you do not need their approval to stand firm in your decisions, they begin to respect you without being asked. You can never go back to being unconscious again. There is a form of power that looks like inaction from the outside. It appears passive, silent, almost indifferent. But in reality, it is one of the most calculated psychological strategies you can use. Strategic ignorance, because attention is not neutral. Attention is energy. Attention is validation. Attention is oxygen. And whatever you give your attention to, you feed. Every argument you engage in grows. Every insult you respond to expands. Every negative voice you entertain gains weight. Most people don't realize this. They believe that responding makes them strong, that defending themselves proves confidence, that correcting every attack protects their image. But in many situations, the opposite is true. By engaging, they give importance to things that were powerless before. They elevate noise into significance. And once something feels significant, it becomes harder to escape. Strategic ignorance flips this dynamic completely. It is not about pretending something doesn't exist. It is about consciously deciding, this does not deserve my energy. Because not every comment deserves a reply. Not every criticism deserves a defense. Not every provocation deserves your presence. In fact, many provocations are designed for one purpose only, to pull you into reaction. Think about online conflicts. A single negative comment appears. If ignored, it disappears into silence. But if you respond emotionally, others join. The conflict grows. The attention multiplies. Now something small has become something consuming. Not because it was powerful, but because it was fed. The same pattern exists in everyday life. In workplaces. In friendships. In families. Someone makes a subtle jab. They are not just expressing an opinion. They are testing if you will engage. If you react, they gain influence over your emotions. If you ignore, they lose their stage. And when someone loses their stage, they often reveal their true intention. They push harder. They become more obvious. They expose their insecurity. All while you remain still. Observing. Learning. Remaining in control of your energy. Strategic ignorance also protects your focus, because every reaction is a distraction. Every unnecessary engagement steals time, clarity, and emotional stability. And over time, those small distractions add up to something bigger. A scattered mind, a reactive personality, a life shaped by other people's noise. But when you practice selective attention, something changes. Your world becomes quieter, clearer, more intentional. You begin to choose where your energy goes, instead of letting others decide for you. And people notice. They notice that their attempts to provoke you don't work. They notice that you don't chase every conflict. They notice that you remain focused on what actually matters. And slowly, something powerful happens. They stop trying. Because without your attention, their influence disappears. This is why strategic ignorance is not weakness. It is discipline. It is self-respect. It is understanding that your energy is limited and valuable. So the next time someone tries to pull you into unnecessary drama, pause. Ask yourself, does this deserve my attention, or is this trying to steal it? Because the things you choose to ignore lose power over you. And the moment you control where your attention goes, you begin to control the direction of your life. There is a truth about human nature that most people resist. People do not respond to reality. They respond to what they believe is real. Perception is the filter through which every action, every word, every decision is judged. And in the world of power, perception often matters more than truth, because people cannot see your intentions. They cannot hear your thoughts. They cannot feel your internal struggles. They can only see what you show them, your posture, your tone, your timing. Your silence. All of it becomes a signal, and those signals create a story in the minds of others. If you appear uncertain, people assume weakness. If you appear defensive, people assume guilt. If you appear calm, people assume control. This is why composed behavior carries so much influence. It shapes the narrative around you without saying a single word. Imagine, to people facing the same situation. Both are under pressure. Both are being questioned. Both are dealing with uncertainty. One becomes visibly anxious. They speak quickly. They try to explain everything at once. The other remains still. They listen. They answer only what is necessary. Their voice stays calm. Which one appears more trustworthy? Which one appears more in control? even if both are equally capable. Perception chooses the winner. This is not deception. This is awareness. Awareness that how you present yourself influences how others treat you. In moments of tension, most people focus on defending the truth. They rush to explain what really happened. They try to correct every misunderstanding. They fight to be seen as right. But in doing so, they lose something more valuable, their composure. And once composure is lost, perception shifts against them. The person who stays calm, even under pressure, sends a powerful signal. I am not shaken by this. That signal alone creates psychological authority. It makes others question themselves. It makes them slow down. It makes them reconsider how they approach you. This is why silence can be more powerful than explanation. Because silence forces others to interpret you, instead of you trying to control every detail. And most of the time, people interpret calmness as confidence. They interpret stillness as strength. They interpret restraint as control. Over time, this shapes your reputation. You become known as someone who does not panic. Someone who does not overreact. Someone who cannot be easily destabilized. And once that perception is established, people treat you differently. They speak to you with more caution. They challenge you less. They respect your space more. Not because they know your internal reality, but because of how you consistently present yourself. This is the power of control. Perception. It is not about pretending to be something you are not. It is about choosing what you allow others to see. So the next time you are in a tense situation, remember this: you do not need to control everything that happens. You only need to control how to appear within it. Because people may never fully know your reality, but they will always respond to your presence. And when your presence communicates calm, control, and quiet confidence, you influence the outcome before a single word is spoken. There is a silent shift that happens when you stop needing outcomes. A shift that most people never experience because they are too attached. Attached to approval, attached to winning, attached to being right, attached to how others see them. And that attachment creates vulnerability. Because the moment you need a certain response, you give the other person leverage over you. If you need their respect, they can withhold it. If you need their agreement, they can deny it. If you need their attention, they can remove it. And once someone controls what you need, they control how you behave. This is why detachment is so powerful. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you are not dependent. You can still prefer an outcome. You can still work toward a goal. You can still value relationships. But you are not emotionally controlled by whether those things go your way. This creates something rare: psychological independence. And psychological independence is intimidating. Because when you don't need validation, people cannot manipulate you with it. When you don't fear losing, people cannot control you with threats. When you don't chase approval, people cannot guide your behavior with praise. You become steady, unmoved by emotional bargaining. And this changes the entire dynamic of every interaction you enter. Imagine a negotiation. One person is desperate for the deal. They need the agreement. They need the outcome. The other person is calm, interested, but not attached, willing, but not dependent, open, but prepared to walk away. Who holds the power? Not the one who wants more, the one who needs less, because the one who needs less can wait longer, can stay calmer, can choose more carefully. And that patience creates pressure. The attached person feels urgency. They speak more. They concede more. They reveal more. While the detached person simply observes. The same pattern exists in relationships. When one person becomes overly attached, they begin to chase. They over-explain. They overgive. They overreact to small changes. And in doing so, they slowly give away their influence. But the person who remains emotionally balanced, who enjoys the connection without needing to control it, becomes magnetic. Because they are not trying to pull the other person closer. They are allowing space. And space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attraction. Attraction creates influence. Detachment also protects your identity, because when you are not attached to others' opinions, you stop reshaping yourself to fit their expectations. You stop performing for approval. You stop editing your behavior to avoid rejection. You begin to act from your own internal standard. And that consistency builds respect. People may not always agree with you, but they will recognize that you are not easily swayed, that you cannot be pressured into decisions that don't align with you, that you are grounded in something deeper than temporary emotion, and that grounding feels like strength. So, the next time you find yourself needing a certain outcome, Pause. Ask yourself, if this doesn't go my way, will I still be okay? If the answer is no, you are vulnerable. If the answer is yes, you are free. Because the moment you release the need for a specific result, you remove other people's ability to control you. And when no one can control you through your needs, your presence changes. You become calmer, clearer, more deliberate. And in that calm independence, you gain something that cannot be forced, demanded, or taken. Influence. There is a language more powerful than words, a language so subtle, so unsettling, that it can shift entire conversations without a single sound. It is silence. Most people fear it. They rush to fill it. They speak to avoid awkwardness. They argue to feel in control. They over-explain to assert dominance. But the truth is, silence is not emptiness. It carries weight. It exerts pressure. It communicates authority without a single word. It commands attention in ways that speech often cannot. When you pause, when you resist reacting, you force others to confront the space you leave behind. They begin to wonder, what is this person thinking? Are they judging me? Are they planning something? In that uncertainty, they reveal themselves, their true intentions, their fears, even the inconsistencies they try to hide. Silence transforms ordinary conversations into psychological tests, and in these tests, most people fail. Imagine a high-stakes negotiation. One person lists demands, threats, or accusations. The other responds, not with rebuttals, not with explanations, but with calm, unshakable silence. The first speaker grows uneasy. They repeat themselves. They overjustify. They reveal insecurities they hadn't intended to share. Every word they speak is fuel for the silent observer's advantage, even in personal relationships. Silence is a weapon. A partner tests boundaries. A friend provokes. A colleague challenges you. Most respond immediately, feeding the tension. But the person who holds silence shifts the dynamic entirely. The other party begins to overthink. They overcompensate. They expose more than they intended, and without realizing it, they start negotiating with themselves. Silence is also a subtle signal of power. It communicates that you are unshakable, that your control does not depend on approval or reaction, that you are aware of the patterns of others and refuse to play by their rules. History is full of masters of this art. Diplomats paused at critical moments, forcing rivals into mistakes. Military leaders observed in silence, letting enemies overextend themselves. Negotiators allowed silence to guide outcomes, compelling concessions without threats. The principle is consistent. Silence creates tension. Tension exposes weakness, and exposure builds power. The key is not silence for its own sake. It is intentional silence. Pause before responding. Resist the urge to defend or justify. Let others fill the gaps. Allow discomfort to work in your favor. The tension you create is a tool. The uncertainty you project is a weapon. The control you gain is invisible yet undeniable. So the next time someone tries to provoke or manipulate you, remember this: your words are optional. Your reaction is not required. Your silence can speak louder than any argument. Master silence. And you do not just preserve power. You shape outcomes. You influence people. You command respect. Because in a world drowning in noise, the person who does not need to speak is the one everyone else is forced to listen to. There is a moment before every reaction, a pause most people ignore. A fraction of a second where the mind tightens, the heart races, and the body prepares to act. It is here that real power exists, because the person who reacts impulsively is predictable. Their behavior can be anticipated, influenced, even controlled. Their emotions are like strings someone else can pull. Non-reactivity is the mastery of that moment. It is the deliberate choice to pause, to observe, to resist the urge to respond immediately. At first, it feels unnatural. Most people are trained to defend themselves, to clarify, to retaliate. Society reinforces reaction. Anger is justified. Defense is expected. Silence is suspicious. But in truth, reacting is giving away your power. When you practice non-reactivity, you create a space between stimulus and response, a space where observation replaces impulse. You see patterns others miss. You notice subtle cues in tone, body language, and intent. You measure before you move. Imagine a colleague in a meeting subtly undermining your idea. Most people feel the urge to defend instantly. They raise their voice, counter the argument, or justify their point of view. In doing so, they hand over control to the instigator. The instigator knows they have provoked a reaction, and that reaction reveals vulnerability. Now imagine responding differently. You pause, you breathe, you let the comment hang in the air. Your silence is deliberate, unshakable. The instigator, expecting conflict, grows uncomfortable. They may speak again, over-explain, or reveal their insecurity. The power shifts, quietly and invisibly, to you. Non-reactivity is not indifference. It is not coldness or passivity. It is awareness. It is mastery of your own inner state. It is choosing which battles matter, which words require a response, and which provocations are relevant. Throughout history, leaders who mastered non-reactivity wielded extraordinary influence. Military commanders remained calm under fire, giving orders with precision while chaos unfolded around them. Negotiators held their composure, letting counterparts overextend themselves. Visionaries observed criticism without defensiveness, learning more from silence than from endless debate. Non-reactivity also transforms relationships. People who cannot provoke you lose the ability to manipulate your behavior. Colleagues, friends, and even adversaries begin to respect your presence because it is unshakable. They cannot control you emotionally. They cannot predict your impulses. And in that unpredictability, you gain subtle, almost invisible influence. The key is practice. Every provocation is an opportunity. Every insult, every criticism, every slight is a test. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, do I need to respond? Or is silence more powerful here? Your answer will determine the energy of the interaction. Over time, non-reactivity becomes instinctive. It is not effortful. It is automatic. You respond strategically, not emotionally. You choose your words with intention. You shape perception without raising your voice. And in mastering this, you discover something profound. The greatest control is internal. It does not come from intimidation, argument, or aggression. It comes from calm, deliberate self-mastery. So, the next time someone attempts to provoke you, remember, your response is your choice. Pause, breathe, observe. Let your stillness do the work that words and anger cannot. Because in a world that rewards reaction, the one who does not react holds the real power. Power is often imagined as loud. Is imagined as forceful, aggressive, unyielding. Yet the truest form of power is almost invisible, quiet, deliberate, internal. The silent power mindset is the culmination of everything you've learned. The mastery of emotion, attention, perception, detachment, silence, and non-reactivity. It is a philosophy of influence that does not demand recognition, yet commands respect. At its core, silent power is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about observing, listening, waiting, choosing your actions with intention rather than impulse. Most people chase validation. They argue to be understood. They overreact to criticism. They explain themselves endlessly, and in doing so, they surrender their authority. They allow others to shape their decisions, manipulate their emotions, and influence their reality. The silent power mindset flips this dynamic. It teaches that strength is not loud or aggressive. It is controlled, calm, and intentional. It is knowing when to speak and when to remain still. It is understanding that the most powerful response is often no response at all. By embracing this mindset, you cultivate emotional discipline. You no longer let insults, criticism, or provocation control your behavior. You master your reactions and act with purpose. Strategic silence. Use pause and quiet to create tension, reveal truth, and shift influence without raising your voice. Selective attention. You focus only on what matters, ignoring distractions, provocations, and trivial drama that seek to steal your energy. Detachment from validation. Your self-worth is internal, not dictated by approval or acknowledgement from others. The transformation is profound. People around you notice a difference even if they cannot name it. They sense someone who is unshakable, someone who cannot be manipulated through emotion or expectation. They realize that your presence is steady, deliberate, and quietly authoritative. They approach you differently. They speak differently. They react differently. The silent power mindset is also deeply liberating. It frees you from the constant anxiety of judgment and comparison. You stop performing for others. You stop reacting to every slight. You stop chasing outcomes you cannot control. Instead, you operate from a space of intentional control. Every word you speak, every decision you make, every interaction you engage in is deliberate. You no longer live in reaction, you live in awareness. And that awareness is strength. It allows you to navigate conflict calmly, observe human behavior sharply, and influence situations subtly. You do not force respect. You do not demand authority. It flows naturally because you embody it. As this mindset takes hold, you'll realize a profound truth. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. The strongest person is not the one who argues, defends, or reacts. The strongest person is the one who remains quiet, steady, and in control, letting the world reveal itself around them while maintaining an unshakable core. Silent power is a practice, a philosophy, and a skill. It is both shield and weapon, subtle yet undeniable. Embrace it, internalize it, let it guide your decisions, because in a world obsessed with noise and reaction, those who master silence hold the real power.